23rd, 2021. Diane, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tease,
Present.
Commissioner Pappas,
Here.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Here.
Commissioner Shoneman,
Here.
Mayor Donches.
Here. So the entire board is here, plus our liaison, Alderman Mike O'Brien. As you see, there is a substitute agenda which includes one additional item, which is a referral from the Board of Aldermen, Board of Aldermen referrals, item C. So that's the amended agenda in yellow. Is there a motion regarding the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the minutes of the August 27 meeting. Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of August 27th, 2021.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We now have public comment. Our procedure is to accept from anybody who wants to talk about a Board of Public Works issue, and up to 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, if I
please-
may?
Please announce your name and
Mr. Mayor?
address.
I don't think we ever voted. I think that we've never, maybe the Board of Aldermen has put that limit on, but this board never voted to do that.
So well, as the chair, that's what I'm suggesting. I suppose you could make a motion to challenge that.
Well, I think let's see how long people want to speak, because I think it's important not to shut the public out.
We're
We
not
used to
shutting.
say- Or say 5 minutes, maybe do 5 minutes, but I don't want to prolong things, but I think we never voted on it as a group. But
Well, it's 3 minutes unless the board rules otherwise. We're following the aldermanic procedure.
Well, I'll move that we go to 5 minutes.
Any discussion? Commissioner Moriarty.
I would just say that the chair controls the agenda of the meeting.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion fails. So please proceed.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I think I can stick to my 3 minutes. A couple things at the last board meeting. It was mentioned by Director Photo at the end regarding costing, that there was some work done on a utility pole, sidewalk, and tree removal or tree replacement due to the Performing Arts Center. My question is, does that come out of the Performing Arts Center budget, or does that come out of Public Works? And maybe it doesn't come out of Performing Arts because of the way Performing Arts is bonded with the facility. However, I'd like to know with the finances, is that cost tracked such that a citizen would be able to see that reflected in the total cost for the Performing Arts Center package? Secondly, your package today has a nice proposal done by a superintendent or a DPW staff member regarding resurfacing the Ledge Street courts to turn them into a street hockey facility. And it looks like there was a lot of detail put in there, and the gentleman made a recommendation not to proceed with that resurfacing and redesign because the cost came to $85,000. I'd like to point out that when the disc golf was presented a month ago, that type of analysis was never presented. And I have to tell you, I'm sorry that Ms. Pappas's motion, and I know that Ms. Shoneman wasn't here, did not pass to go and walk the area. I, for one, can't see in the design how many acres that 18-hole golf course takes up. Also, if you need to create more parking space, parking can cost you $50,000 to $250,000. If you have tree work to do, there's a cost associated with that. If you have to move a walking path, there's a cost associated with that. and none of that was costed out. And I think it's perfectly acceptable that citizens come forward and present their ideas to this board on what they're interested in. You should always be open-minded. You should always welcome that kind of discussion. But I just don't feel that the analysis and the plan put forth was complete enough to make a vote to say, let's spend $30,000, because it would easily look to me like it could be a project that costs $300,000. And also, we're very landlocked and real estate limited. Roby Park is a beautiful park. I'm just not certain if the disc golf space and real estate would constitute a usage that would be good for the city in the long run when it came to activities for kids and families. It's just a thought, I don't know, but I don't think there was enough rich discussion on this to speak to it. Finally, I noticed there's a gentleman running for Public Works that's also a Greater American Downtown individual who made a request to the Department of Public Works regarding some street work that was being done, and received what looks like a pretty prompt response on what was going on. I'd just like to point out that I'm all about equal access to information and responses. Some of us have to fight through right-to-knows and long delays to get information, and others get stuff handed to them very rapidly. And my platform has always been equal access to information, and I hope this board would embrace that. And I hope as a board that you all want to see that happen for everything that goes on here at your board table. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak to the board?
So my name is Paul Shea. I'm a resident of 102 Toll Street. I live in French Hill here in the city, and I am a candidate for Public Works. I just wanted to come and introduce myself this evening first. Second, I also wanted to thank the department for some great attention to some needed handicap parking signs at Roby Park. So there was a need for an update of the lines and some repainting of the spaces out there, as well as installation of proper signage. It's a really important issue. Access to our parks and accessibility of our public facilities is very important, and so that quick attention is greatly appreciated. I know that this department has had to cut the budget 1% this year, which presents a significant challenge with resources, but attention to these smaller details and making sure that things are safe and accessible is a top priority. And I know that the department and the city workers are very attentive to that. So I wanted to express my gratitude this evening. I don't know who the speaker was before me. I assume she was referring to me as a candidate for the Department of Public Works. If that person might introduce themselves, that would be appreciated. Knowing who is talking about me in public forums and saying unkind things would be the proper thing to do. Thank you.
All right, any other member of the public want to speak to the board? All right, we'll go on to Board of Aldermen referrals. We have item A, Commissioner Tease.
I move to refer to the Board of Aldermen Resolution R21-165, authorizing the City of Nashua to enter into communications tower lease agreement.
Now, do we have someone here to address that?
It's the lease at Holman Stadium?
Yes.
Steve Bolten, City Corporation Council, here to talk a little bit about the lease. Essentially, Verizon Wireless proposed this and has gotten approvals, the necessary approvals from the planning department. It's been on the drawing board for quite some time, and I think Nick originally and Jason now are somewhat familiar with what is contemplated. Jason can certainly speak for himself, but my understanding is it doesn't interfere with any of their facilities or programs, but in fact, the new lighting provides a benefit to the stadium. Essentially, what the proposal is to replace the existing light tower that lights center field primarily with a new light tower and communications tower beyond the left center field wall, and put new lights on it, and Verizon would use it for its cellular equipment. Additionally, there's a additional small building on the ground that will house some of their other communication equipment in association with that that's on the tower itself. They get the lease right to access the tower for the purpose of doing maintenance and necessary repairs 24 hours a day, so long as it doesn't interfere with any of the city activities that may be going on, which would include the baseball games and other events that customarily take place at home. The lease is for 5 years. It provides for the possibility of extended terms for additional extensions for 5 years each. The rental is $43,250, I believe, per year, and that escalates by 2% every year. I have the actual approved site plan and facilities plan and so forth from the planning department, if any of you want to look for it. There are several iterations, both photographs and aerial photographs and plans. I think the simplest is the vicinity rendering on the first page, which identifies where the location of the tower will be. But you're certainly free to look at any and all of the drawings and photos. And I do my best to answer any questions
Any
if there are
comments or
any.
questions from anyone? Commissioner Schoeneman.
It seems as though the current pole is going to be taken down
Yes,
and a new one is going to be put up.
yes.
What is the cost of that going to be and who's paying for it?
I don't know what the cost is going to be. I know the city is paying absolutely nothing during the entire length of the lease or extended term of the lease. Verizon is responsible for all costs associated,
Okay, so Verizon is paying for the replacement of the pole.
everything.
Commissioner Pappas.
Are we going to get a similar amount of money than we have in the past, or have we increased the amount that we'll get from Verizon?
That is substantially increased under this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Attorney Bolten. Next, we have item B, Commissioner Schoeneman.
It's on the, yeah.
Let me get the right one here. Will you take it?
We got drinks. I'll move to, for a favorable approval of Resolution R21-166 relative to the approval of an updated New Hampshire Department of Transportation project agreement and acceptance and appropriation of federal aid surface transportation funds from the state of New Hampshire for the purpose of improving existing signalized intersections where West Hollis Street and Canal Street meet Bridge Street.
All right. Well, we have Mr. Hudson here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Hudson, city engineer. Here tonight, kind of pitching in here for Tim Cummings, who unfortunately couldn't be here due to a scheduling conflict. But this agreement, this is a resolution of an agreement between the New Hampshire Department of Transportation and the city for a local administered project, which is at the intersection of East Hollis Street and Bridge Street, right next to the twin bridges to Hudson. This project goes back a ways, but there's been through a preliminary study phase, and they've arrived at a preferred alternative, which is up on the screen here. That preferred alternative makes some configuration changes to the intersection, adds a little bit of green space and that sort of thing, provides access to all the abutting areas. This agreement is fully state funded. Well, actually, it's a combination of federal funds at 80% and state funds at 20%, up to a $3,661,000 number. And then if costs escalate above that, there's a cost-sharing agreement outlined in the agreement. This project, as I said, has been in the works for a while, so we're interested in getting this agreement in place, and then we can move forward through final design phases and construction phases. I'd be happy to try to address any questions.
Commissioner Pappas.
What's the cause for the delay? This seems to have gone on for an inordinate amount of time.
Like I said, this goes back a ways, as you said. I think the original agreement might have been, from 2014 or so. A lot of different options were looked at in the preliminary phase. There was a number of different alternatives. It's a heavy traffic corridor, so there was a number of alternatives looked and analyzed, and that was quite a bit of work. And there was public meetings and a committee that went through that whole process. It's taken a little time. That wrapped up a while ago, but that's taken a little time to get an agreement hammered out with DOT. This agreement was negotiated to include the cost escalation pieces, which weren't in the original agreement. And it was important to do that in case like construction costs have been increasing pretty rapidly, so it's important to do that, to put that in place, so we can go forward with comfort knowing what the arrangement will be if, costs go up a little bit, so.
So is this a different alternative from what we embraced many years ago?
I don't think so. This is the preferred alternative that came out of that study, the engineering study phase.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. I only speak up just to provide additional information. This was heard last night at the Infrastructure Committee meeting, and it passed the Infrastructure Committee unanimously. It is next to go to Human Affairs and, through this board, Human Affairs, and will be discussed at the chamber. But the Infrastructure Committee did pass it, particularly with some joy, in looking at $3,661,000 with zero portion to be shared by the city. And we're going to beautify that welcoming area of the city. It's something that's very good. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Shoneman.
So this is this a roundabout? A traffic circle?
No, not in the traditional sense. So it does have kind of a circulatory pattern, but there are traffic signals at the different legs coming in so that there's some, pedestrian crossing ability. This area is kind of unique. You have two major roadways back and forth to Hudson, and they kind of, cross paths. So it's a very unique type of intersection, or I guess a challenge to be addressed by such a project. So no, it is not a roundabout.
Okay. And it's my understanding of the resolution that the city doesn't pay unless this project goes way, way over budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, once it goes above 3.6, whatever it was, $1 million, at that point there'd be a cost sharing, and up to another limit. It's a 20% city share, I think it was, and 80% state, federal. And then if it goes even higher, there's a 50-50 match. But as Mr. Alderman O'Brien noted, it's a great deal for the city, regardless, if it's a little bit more than what the budget is. It's still a great deal for us in terms of city dollars in versus state and federal funding that will be provided.
And the city's going to be very motivated to keep the project within budget, right?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We now have item C, Commissioner Tease.
Sure, I move for positive referral to the Alderman Resolution R21-169, authorizing the City of Nashua to enter into an agreement and consent to joint use with Liberty Utilities and making a supplemental appropriation of $38,394.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, this is a referral of this agreement added late to the agenda, but what it is an agreement between Liberty Utilities and the city. The city currently has a drainage and sewer easement that runs from the end of Swart Terrace down past the railroad. And where it comes to Swart Terrace, it's fairly narrow. Liberty Utilities, in order to improve the gas feed to this area, wants to put a high-pressure gas main in. So this is co-locating within a portion of our easement is what this agreement is. As their pipe will be placed close to our drainage pipe, what we've requested is that they make a contribution so that we can actually line that drainage pipe so that there's no concerns with its condition over the term. And this further lays out that should we ever need to move or dig up or replace that drainage pipe in the future, that they will relocate out of our way and then relocate back. So, so that's the agreement in a nutshell. I think we do have Andrew Mills from Liberty Utilities on the Zoom if there are questions, technical questions about why this is needed or anything like that.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion
I'm going to
passes.
abstain.
Pardon?
I'm going to abstain.
Motion passes with Commissioner Pappas abstaining. We're now going to go to Park Rec Department. Item A, Commissioner Moriarty.
Yes, I move to approve the contract for a conceptual field study for synthetic fields at Mine Falls Park in the amount of $25,900 with Nesra Engineering LLC of North Attleboro, Massachusetts. Funding will be through Department 177 Parks and Recreation, Fund Trust, Account Classification, 55 Other Services.
Mr. Popolo is here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jason Popolo, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. Like said, this is a conceptual field study for Mine Falls Park area for synthetic fields. The city is in need of more fields for mostly rectangular fields for soccer or other sports in that nature. As it's a new construction for that site, a design and conceptual study is needed to make sure everything is set in place for construction. It will give details on everything needed for it, whether it's construction access, construction costs, construction logistics, budgets. So it's really a needed study for such a large-scale project to ensure that the costs are dealt with correctly. There were 6 different firms that reached out with bids. Nesra was the lowest bidder, but their work is comparable to that of the others or even better. They've had quite a few of these studies or lots of project management over the past few years of similar situations, whether that's for municipalities, schools, other environments of the same nature. And it's a good study to have done for such a field project. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions for that.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Now, Superintendent, I was just wondering, are these, we're just going to put synthetic on the fields that are presently there, or are we carving out new fields? I wasn't clear on this.
For fields of that type, where there isn't an existing synthetic field, where if you were to do a replacement, it's similar to a carpet, a lot of people could think, and you could peel it up and put back a new surface. Where there hasn't been one in place, there's a lot of subsurface work that needs to go in, whether that's drainage, engineered soils, grading, stuff like that. So there's a fair amount that goes into it, but it is on the existing fields. And this study will help show too what area of the actual fields is the best and most suitable for it, whether that's through geotechnical boring or other means.
Commissioner Pappas.
How much money do we have the parks, in the Parks and Recreation Trust funds with other services?
This trust fund is coming from the Mine Falls account. Roughly, I don't have the number off the top of my head, it's high 400s. I want to say somewhere around $460,000 or so.
And how does that get replenished?
The cell tower account in Mine Falls
Okay,
takes care of that.
thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is item B, Commissioner Pappas.
I'll move to accept and place on file the renovation cost for the enlargement improvement of the Ledge Street deck hockey court.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor.
Commissioner Moriarty.
I'd love to have the superintendent go
Oh.
through that.
I'm sorry, yes, we should have had that, yes. Mr. Popolo, could you address this for the board, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As was gone over in our last BPW meeting, the resident who's passionate about this project wanted to see the current deck hockey court at Ledge Street, right by the Boys and Girls Club and our baseball fields, wanted to see that renovated to grow it in size, and he was also concerned about the existing condition of the court. After looking at what his needs and desires were for such a project, would be in terms of not necessarily enlarging it to full regulation size, but just to get a little more length of it was his terms exactly, 20 feet or so on 10 feet or so on each side. So it'd be about 20 feet longer. After looking at it with different departments within the division and their expertise and whether it was paving or site work or whatever else, it looked like based upon site constraints, it can really only go one way. So the whole court would have to shift, or not shift, it would have to grow 20 feet one way to gain that 10 feet on each side. With a project like that, it has an existing fence all around it. We would have to take down the fence to repave, to shim the surface up or repave the surface. Have to put in a new fence for that. There'd be some site prep on the outside of what the existing court now in terms of tree removals, stump removals, site grading. There's most likely potential for a retaining wall because the grades actually go up. So as we cut into that slope to make the court, we would have to retain that grade. Along with all of those are these costs that I associated with that, whether it was the $5,000 for site prep, the retaining wall at $12,000, the paving at $8,500. Those were all our in-house costs. That was just solely materials if we were to do that ourselves within the division. The two largest costs that you see are subcontracted costs that we don't have the material or the equipment to handle within the division. So that's whether it's fencing. So all of the fencing would have to be redone around that because of the paving project, enlarging it, adding more to it. That's a large cost. It's an estimate, but for similar projects that I've encountered and we've encountered here in the city, it's estimated to be somewhere around $30,000. The surface painting, that's similar to a tennis court or basketball court, something like that. It's not just a basic paint that goes over it. It's more of a sealing and a polymer type paint that goes on that. Special contractors do that. That $30,000 cost is estimated off of similar projects, off of a tennis court that I just looked at the cost of. So it adds up to quite a bit for what the current existing court is in relatively good shape compared to most of our other existing surfaces and facilities. Only gaining 10 feet really doesn't change the game any. It doesn't make it regulation size. It doesn't do much. So it's just my recommendation that we would hold off on that and move that effort more towards an existing surface that's in more need of the work.
Commissioner Pappas.
Is there a way to make it, the site, maybe give it a facelift, have it be a little bit more palatable?
Yep. Yeah, there's really, the biggest thing with it, his concern was he thought the surface was failing. There's really only one crack in it. I've already gotten starting to get some numbers together or get materials together to where we can fill that crack ourselves. It's not a safety hazard. It's really not even a hazard towards the play of the game, towards the ball roll or anything like that, but that would help. So I'm planning on doing that in-house, irregardless. But the fence is fairly new, so the fence doesn't need to be redone. The court is relatively new and in relatively good condition, especially comparing it to our other aging facilities.
Yep.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Superintendent, thank you very much for the report. And I know that Mr. Curtin is working to try to get some private funds and also applying for some grants.
Yep.
So maybe we can readdress this,
Yep.
should that come about, and maybe it could be doable.
Yep.
Commissioner Pappas.
That's what I was going to suggest. The other, I'll tell you, I don't know, when Parks and Rec, I understand that there was some sort of petition that he filed. My other understanding is that there was a petition filed for the disc golf. This board has never gotten that kind of communication. Where are those petitions held and filed?
I do not have the petition for the disc golf, but there was never a petition filed for this deck hockey court. It was just Michael Curtin reaching out.
Could it have been filed with the Board of Aldermen, or?
I do not believe it was.
No, Dickie Smart, who presented, has the petition for the disc golf.
Okay. I think that we should get a copy of the petition and the addresses of the folks that signed. I think that would be helpful. I was actually going to suggest to reach out for this to the community to try to help get a little bit of money, because if you want to schlep kids off to soccer or baseball, it takes a lot of energy. It takes parents who have the time, who may not be working several jobs to get them there. And what I really liked about this project, I'm not saying this expensive part, but what I like about that program is that they meet the kids in their areas. They can show up there. It's easy for people who don't have cars. And, I would certainly hope that we would be able to embrace this project and direct them towards areas where they may be able to get some money. And as I said, you can't always get what you want, but you can get what you need. And I was very impressed with that program. And, I do appreciate the detail. Do you have any details on how much we've spent for disc golf, and then how much it's going to cost to, we never received anything like that.
I do. I was going going to present that later on, Commissioner Pappas. But
Okay.
we've spent $4,950 to date, and that is for design work.
Okay. And why did we get the $30,000 if Rotary was going to pay?
I don't think we're going to need $30,000. I think that it will be funded by a private source. And I think it will be funded by Rotary.
The next meeting, can we get how much it's going to cost to do the paving and to move the, walking trails?
I won't know that until the final design is completed. And that won't be done until sometime in the fall.
Okay, thank you. And again, that was short order and I like that kind of detail, and I appreciate that very much.
Of course, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, I believe the motion is to accept and place on file. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we'll go to, thank you very much. Next, we go to the street.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, and with indulgence through you, Mr. Popolo, if I may ask a question through the mayor.
Yeah, come on back up.
This is for Ward 9, Alderman at large, but we all come from a ward. What's the update of the St. Andrews Field? I know you were hoping to do something by the fall. We are now in the fall. The neighborhood's changing somewhere along the line. I was a young guy in the neighborhood, now I'm the old guy in the neighborhood. But what's healthy is I see younger families are moving in with children, and I think the top park there could use some TLC at the very least, so is it still on the front burner is my question.
It is. I've already done some conceptual design just internally of what could work and what would help that area, and it's really just waiting on some funding. And that's it.
And that's adequate. Thank you. I think the people of Ward 9 would,
Yep.
because they do inform me, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to bring that question up.
All right, thank you. On to the street department. The item A, Commissioner Shoneman.
I move to approve the sole source purchase of asphalt and aggregates from Brock's Industries of Hudson, New Hampshire, and Continental Paving of Londonderry, New Hampshire,
Oh, I didn't know he was on.
in the amount of $144,500. Funding will be through Department 161 Streets, Fund General, Account Classification 61, Supplies and Materials.
All right, Mr. Ibarra is attending remotely. So, Mr. Ibarra, could you come forward, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So these two vendors supply our aggregates and asphalt for our daily operations. We use them regularly, whether we're doing mill and fill or we're doing a sewer dig. We get our stone and our sand and our asphalt through these two vendors. So I'm looking to encumber these funds out of our operating budget so we can continue to do business with them. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ibarra. Now we're back to
Thank you.
engineering. We have item A, Commissioner Tease.
Move to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permits and fees as submitted.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the purchase and installation of 5 overhead 360-degree vehicle detection camera systems from Electric Light Company of Cape Nettic, Maine, in an amount of $104,580. Funding will be through Department 160 Admin Engineering Fund, prior year escrow, account classification 71, equipment.
All right. Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So as noted, this is for replacement of 5 cameras on DW Highway. I think you've heard me say before, the equipment on DW Highway is aging and at the end of its useful life. So through like-for-like escrow from last year, this is being funded for replacement of the vehicle detection cameras at those locations. We are getting a credit to the equipment, the previous equipment not quite performing as well as we would have liked. We've had problems with it, so this says this will replace it with grid smart cameras, which we had very good success with. These cameras have additional capabilities, I've said before, that you can collect turning movement count data over time, so that enables us to do a better job of timing intersection and coordinated signals along the corridor. So again, we've had good success with these, and that's why we're proposing replacement of these on DW Highway.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We next have item C, Commissioner Pappas.
To consider a hardship request from Gimmick Properties to excavate in May Street to install sewer, gas, and water in a driveway.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Fieldstone Land Consultants, agent for Gimmick Properties, owner of 23 Dodge Street, is requesting that their client be allowed to excavate into May Street, which was last paved in September 2017, so about a year left on the moratorium. This is a small 2-lot subdivision. The existing house is going to retain the services that are in use on Dodge Street, which is also a moratorium, but they're not planning to cut into that because they're using existing services. But they are proposing to cut into May Street. And we have Nate Chamberlain here, who, from Fieldstone, who could speak to the hardship, should the board have a question about it.
All right. So do you want him to come forward? Yes, please. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name when I missed.
Nathan Chamberlain, Fieldstone Land Consultants.
All right.
As was stated, we have a 2-lot subdivision that was approved by the planning board, and we're utilizing the services to the existing house for one of the lots that come off of Dodge Street, which is appears to be a more traveled street than May Street. Is just a short little connector street. It's not curbed or anything. There's only 2 driveways on it now. We're adding a 3rd driveway, and we need to tie in the utilities. And as was stated, it was, the moratorium was paid 4 years ago, so we're really only cutting it by a year. So we're just looking to get approval to do that work.
All right. Commissioner Tease.
Who is the principal of GMAC Properties?
Marcelo?
Okay.
I don't recall his last name.
Borges.
Borges, that's it.
Commissioner Moriarty.
I'm just for clarification, because we're going by the city ordinance regarding this moratorium, and it does require emergency or hardship, and I didn't hear why. What is the hardship in this situation that we should approve?
So we need to we have an approved subdivision and an approved house location that we need to supply utilities to. That's the hardship. So we either apply for a hardship onto Dodge Street, which was paved more recently and is a more traveled street, or go into May Street. And we can certainly overlay, per the NRO 285-13, we can overlay 20 feet on either side of it, full width, to cover the patch per the ordinance. And I guess, as I said, it's just a short cross street, and we'd really like approval to put the utilities in there.
But sir, what is the hardship? If this is not approved, what is the hardship?
The hardship is that we have an approval to construct a building there, and we need to provide utilities. I'm not sure what are the hardship? You know, why else someone would need to cut into the street?
Commissioner Pappas.
I would agree with Commissioner Moriarty. I've been pretty consistent, and, I think the hardship has been kind of put on the backs of the taxpayers when our streets are cut into too quickly after they're being paved. And those are my thoughts, and I would agree that, no, I understand wanting to get a property developed, but I don't see that as a hardship, and I've been pretty consistent. Thank you.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
So in general, I also agree that cutting into streets that are under moratorium is not kind to the taxpayers and not good for the streets. But I think that it's okay to be willing to be a little flexible. My feeling, to be flexible, this plan wasn't done or proposed before the streets were paved. Now they're ready to go ahead. May Street is a small street, very small. It's not going to be a burden to commuters, to residents in the area. And it's 4 out of the 5 years of the moratorium. I think that it's okay to be a little bit flexible on this, so I think it's okay to be in favor of it.
If I may, in answer to Mr. Moriarty's question, I guess the hardship would be forcing this applicant, this owner, to wait a year to cut in the street.
Okay,
Commissioner
Mayor,
Moriarty.
please. My point is, I guess I was looking for more concrete numbers, okay? Is maybe a financial hardship, because if you don't get it, it's gonna cut, the owner needs this but you're not giving me, this will probably pass, but I don't know if it will, and if it doesn't pass, then I would say you need to come back with something more itemized or something telling us what the hardship
Sure.
is.
I do apologize. I mean, it certainly would cause a financial hardship, making him wait a year to build this house and develop the property.
Thank you.
I guess we had 1 year to go. We're going to pave the street the full width, 20 feet either side of the proposed patch. If we wait a year, he doesn't have to do that. So, the general requirement, there's no moratorium. It's do 3 feet either side of a regular trench patch. So he's going to do that on top of paving 20 feet either side of the patch. So you're getting a better result by approving this, letting him go in a year early.
I would just say in general that, at least in my view, as we've considered these, there needs to be a thought given to the benefit to the city versus the potential cost to the taxpayers. And some of these that we've considered have involved, projects that at least potentially would be huge tax revenue. And in exchange, there's a small cut in the street, which, could result in some compromise, but the tax revenue on some of these projects coming in would be enough to repave the whole street, just, the money coming in 1 year. So I'm not sure that always saying no is, is a taxpayer's friend. On the other hand, I don't know, here, maybe there is a hardship. I think the balance in terms of, the tax revenue won't be very great, but on the other hand, the street is very short, as Commissioner Schoeneman has already pointed out, and there's only 1 year left. So, does anybody have any further thoughts? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I'll vote aye, and we'll grant you the hardship, but I consider it a close case.
Thank you.
All right, next one is item D, Commissioner Shoneman.
I move to accept the Charlotte Avenue Safe Routes to School project is finally complete.
Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure to come and report on a project that is complete, and that is the Charlotte Avenue Safe Routes to School project. Another project that's been around for a while, but was a great project and spearheaded by Alderman Dowd and supported by many others along the way. But it's the project constructed 676 feet of new curb and sidewalk, consolidated 3 separate pedestrian crossings into one, implemented traffic calming measures. It included school zone flashing beacon signs, a radar for speed feedback, and other items. So this motion before you is for acceptance, and that will allow us to complete the closeout paperwork with the Department of Transportation.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is item E, Commissioner Tease.
Is there a motion involved, or are we just?
I don't
placing
think
it on
there
record?
is. I think it's
Information.
just informational, so sorry about that. But does anybody have any questions or anything, thoughts on this? If not, we'll move on to wastewater. Waste, is Mr. Boucher here by remote?
No, it's just to approve the user warrants.
Oh, okay, we've just got one motion. All right, Commissioner Tease, item A.
Move to approve the user warrants as presented.
Anybody have thoughts? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. We next have administration, 2 informational items. One has to do with the FY21 escrows and also the snow budget, and I believe Chief Financial Officer John Griffin is here regarding the escrow process. So why don't we invite him up?
I was
and-
just going to mention a couple of things, Mayor, before CFO Griffin speaks.
All right.
Commissioner Pappas, you had asked what the amount remaining was in the snow fund for fiscal year 2021. And as of June 30th, we had $145,548.03 left. But I also did want to point out that, and we reported this at our July meeting, but we did transfer out $229,000 for our traffic cameras and detection equipment, and also $4,000 for our fleet diagnostic computer out of us for the street department. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that.
I just want, okay, so I think I wrote down the wrong numbers. You said you had 145 left over, and then,
$145,548, correct.
And then
as
what-
of June 30th.
right, and
After
then,
taking out
But prior to that, we had transferred out $229,000 for traffic cameras and detection equipment,
okay.
and $4,000 for a fleet diagnostic computer. That was reported, if you look back in our July
Okay.
meeting.
No, I
did-
thought,
just as a
I
reminder.
thought you, the 145 and then gave 229 after that. I'm glad that
I
the
just wanted
229
to-
was done before.
Yes,
Okay.
it was, correct. Okay.
All right, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. John Griffin, Chief Financial Officer. Wanted to briefly update some of you folks on the escrow process that takes place annually. As you know, the departments and the divisions propose a budget to the Board of Aldermen through Mayor Donches. The Board of Aldermen review the budget pretty diligently. There are guidelines that the mayor sets, working with me and my staff, to estimate to the best of our abilities an impact to the tax rate going forward. Escrows have been in existence here in the city of Nashua for quite some time. This is my 11th year at the city, and we have this process every year. How it works is we manage our budgets, we watch our budgets, we have budget checks through our accounting system pretty diligently. And what we try to do as we go forward with the next budget, we try to estimate what the tax rate implications would be. To do that, we have surplus in regards to revenues that exceed budget, and as you probably have heard time and time again, we budget revenues very conservatively, so as not to overestimate revenue and then you have a spending problem. We also budget the appropriations based on the needs of the different divisions and how they articulate that through two processes. One is when they present to the mayor and I and the rest of the members of the budget team, and the other is when they go before the Board of Aldermen, or in the case of the Department of Public Works, go through to you folks for your budget. Some years, we've had a lot of, oh, I'm sorry,
Can I
Mayor.
just interrupt for a second? This machine here is causing a lot of noise, so please try to speak up so everybody can hear.
Oh, okay.
This thing up here causes a lot of noise.
Okay.
Or maybe even take his mask off while he's speaking. Would that be okay?
I'd be- I would like that if I could.
It's hard,
So,
we can't hear it, we can't hear it.
Yeah, it's very
yeah,
difficult to hear.
okay. I think I'm speaking too loud, but I'll try to speak louder. So we go through the process, and the process is approved, the adopted budget is in force. And what I was trying to say is sometimes the winter doesn't cooperate, meaning we get a lot of snow. I've been with Lisa for a long time, and on some occasions, we need to use the snow trust fund to shore up the expenses in the street department and the park rec department for snow plowing, et cetera. And from time to time, we identify surplus, or we just haven't spent certain of the money. So the mayor has the opportunity, working with the directors, to approve what's called like for like, meaning the Board of Aldermen approved the appropriation, and because of timing and other things, we haven't spent it on that particular purpose. So we just simply move it into the following year. That doesn't need the approval of the Board of Aldermen. The ones that you looked at or have looked at or heard about are the unlike escrows. That's where we're taking monies that were planned for another activity or program, but we didn't need as much, or we decided not to do the program. So that frees up appropriations not spent that we can reappropriate through the legislative process of the Board of Aldermen. What the departments generally do is when you put together a budget for a particular year, you can't possibly get everything that you'd like to do because you've got the constraint of a reasonable tax rate. So what you want to do is when you produce your budget, you want to make sure you can operate your division or department effectively and efficiently, but you also have things that you'd like to get to, and that's what the unlike escrows produce, items or projects or initiatives that you'd like to get, but you weren't able to produce those dollars to fund it in the budget process. So it's been used in the city of Nashua for over 25, maybe 30 years. Effectively, it allows, it's one-time revenue, one-time appropriations not spent. It's not continuing. So you take the opportunity to use those funds to do initiatives or purchases or projects that will allow you to operate in the future. The biggest item that we funded in this particular escrow process is the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund, SERF. For quite some time, we haven't been able to fund the magnitude of dollars that we need in that particular trust fund. And under the mayor's leadership and the fact that we have appropriations not spent, we've been able to fund it pretty effectively over the last several years. So as we articulated to the Board of Aldermen the night we met, a lot of the dollars go into trust funds positioning us to have the funds available when we need them in future years. So that's an overview. I hope that's helpful. I'm here to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Commissioner Tease.
I realize this is informational, and I don't really know what purview we have over it. I appreciate the presentation. I did have a question, out of curiosity. The largest item, which comprises 50% of the total, is coming from school going to SURF. I'm just curious what wasn't expended within that school budget that allows it to move out?
That's a very good question, Commissioner Tease. We work, in addition to tracking things, we work very effectively and extensively with Mr. Donovan, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the school, and it became pretty apparent as the pandemic was going on. It was a unique circumstance where buildings weren't open. There might have been some savings in payroll with regard to teachers. It just wasn't a normal year. So he was able to identify a fair amount of surplus. And as you notice, that we were able to use that because we need a funding source. We need the appropriations not spent, so we're able to effectively use that in SURF. The school department does participate in the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund, not to the magnitude of Department of Public Works, Police, and Fire, but they do contribute, and they were comfortable with that appropriations not spent given back to the city. That's basically what it's referred to. Thank you.
If I may, just as a follow-up, I figured that was likely the case with respect to the pandemic. I'm just curious, like, if I don't know the final purview of the school budget, how easily did they give up that money? Why aren't they fighting to keep it, under their own department or for their future use?
So what Mr. Donovan does in cooperation with the superintendent is he essentially chairs, or he's the staff person that works with the school Board of Education Finance and Ops Committee. So he was able to clearly articulate what the objective of the funds were going to be. It wasn't all of the appropriations not spent. He was able to cover certain things that you would see in the escrows. He's got money in there for certain items. But he got his recommendation. He basically got the ability to do that from the school department, from the leadership and the board at the school department. It doesn't happen often. I can't remember when it happened. But certainly not to that magnitude, but it's really a partnership. And just one other item on that, we have American Rescue Plan funds, and the mayor has articulated that one of the strategies we're going to use is we're going to take approximately $1.2 million to shore up their food service program that's funded in two respects. One is the federal money coming in. The other is the money you get from the teachers and other folks that pay for those meals. That was we get $8,000 in the last year. Went from $2 million down to 1.3 down to 8,000. That's a perfect application for the revenue replacement. So we were able to, he was going to use appropriations not spent, but we say, wouldn't a better application would be to use the American Rescue Plan dollars and use the SURF, use the funding to fund the SURF to the tune of $2.7 million.
Thank you for your detailed answer. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Pappas.
So all mine are related to Public Works. A lot of my frustration, I had been asking for a long time how much money was left in the snow fund. Just because I think that as a board, we should have some oversight and some say in how are things going to be spent. So to avoid that for next year, of course, I'll say this, we'll probably hit the snow trust fund and then have to, I'm probably jinxing myself. If I sent you an email, say, April 30th, sometime between April 30th and May 15th, would you be able to tell me how much money is left in the snow overtime budget?
Yes.
Okay. I do appreciate, I really appreciate you coming and explaining this, but while I understand it as a board, we don't necessarily say, this is exactly how I think it should be spent. But I think as a board, we really haven't had a lot of say. And my thought is that we should provide some oversight in our thoughts and reflections from what we're gathering from citizens for how our money should be spent. So I think we've kind of been left out of the process. And again, I understand you're not under our department, and I very much appreciate all the materials you put together and your explanation. It was very helpful. But if I have, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I may. So if I have a specific question as to how much money is left in the account at a certain time, you'd be able to, again, not to be a pest every single day, but just every so often, if I gave you a holler, you'd be able to give me that information?
To the best of my ability, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But I'd work with your team and so forth. But if I may, Mr. Mayor and members of the committee.
Yeah, go ahead.
What happens with the escrows is, as I mentioned, we're trying to use what's arguably one-time money for one-time projects. But since I've been here, we have a comprehensive capital improvement process that we develop a book of needs, a lot of which can't be funded, unfortunately. But the roadway repair, the sidewalks, things like that, that's where the money generally goes in the capital improvements portion of the accounting, especially for the escrows. So you might have an opportunity to put $75,000 in a fund to shore up sidewalks. You might not spend it all in one year. You might use it for the next year. But so in a way, when the management comes in and says, this is what we're proposing for the capital improvement program that goes through the planning department and is looked at by a lot of folks, that's where you've kind of given, boy, we need sidewalks, we need roads, we need, so in a way, you've kind of acknowledged that you need that funding, and the escrow process is a way of getting the funding. It's not everything, but it's a lot of it. I just wanted to share that with you, but.
Right. I was just thinking in terms of having an elected board that's really supposed to answer to the people and to find out and to be better informed. I think better communication is never a bad thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
Yes, thank you for your explanation thus far. I'm still kind of a newbie on the board, and finances are definitely not my forte. Just ask my husband. But the way I understand it is the escrow is money that we didn't spend, that we had appropriated, and it can do one of two things. You can reappropriate it into pet projects, or you can give a tax break to taxpayers. Is that how it works?
So, if I may, Mr. Mayor, so surplus, as I mentioned, is made up of two components. One is the revenue generated, that's more than budget. We usually have a fairly healthy balance in that the mayor and I plan to use against the tax rate. So, for example, we have a $4 million amount that is already had first reading. We're going to have a budget review committee meeting Monday to apply the $4 million to reduce the tax rate. That's kind of the first thing we do. I'm getting to the appropriations not spent, but the first thing we do is make sure we can reasonably buy down that tax rate using excess revenue over budget. If we don't have enough of that, I've been here sometimes where we've had to use appropriations not spent to buy down the tax rate. The other thing we want to do is provide some level of consistency on the tax rate, so you don't have it goes up 10% one year and down 2% of that, you know, that type of thing. So it's called tax rate management, and the rating agencies look favorably upon that strategy as well. But getting back to your first question, it can be spent, reappropriated, moved into the following year, or it can go to fund balance. You don't necessarily have to reduce the tax. It's not a choice. You have multiple choices. You can increase the fund balance, the general fund balance as well. Not use it against the tax rate, not spend it, increase the fund balance. We generally try to grow the fund balance. The communication there is the mayor's report on or before September 1st, notification of surplus and overlay. So that's where the mayor is able to communicate to the Board of Aldermen what we believe the fund balance will be, the general fund balance. The other thing there is very important to rating agencies is to see a growth in the unassigned fund balance of the city. That number is about 31 million. 31 million is about 11.4% of general fund appropriations. They want to see consistency with that. We have ordinances that require us to have at least 10%. But fortunately, last few years, we've been over 11. A little bit complicated, probably more than what you wanted, but there's moving parts to it. We spend a lot of time working with it and try to do the best we can for all the different constituencies in the city.
Thank you. If I may ask one other thing, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is it appropriate for me to ask you to explain what some of these requests mean?
Well, sure, you could start with me, and if it's a DPW item, the director works with us extensively on these items.
Okay, so only if it's DPW related, is it appropriate for me to ask what they are?
I can't answer anything that's not DPW related.
Okay.
Maybe the
might be able
CFO
to.
could.
Well, one question, and, you know, if it's something that can't be answered. One of the requests is for the holiday stroll, which I understand has been canceled.
That's
Was
not, that would not be a Public Works.
Okay.
That might have been in the, just for clarification, that's in the like for like that was moved over. Wasn't spent last year, moved over to the following year.
Okay. I guess I don't understand how that works.
Okay, we have, just for clarification, we have one page of unlikes that the Board of Aldermen approved. We have 3 pages of like for likes that the mayor approved. I don't, I can find it, but it's not, it's more or less not spent last year, moved into the following year.
Okay.
Commissioner Pappas.
You done?
I'm done.
So I was just curious, so, because Commissioner Shoneman just brought up the holiday stroll. So even though Public Works employees are paid overtime, that overtime doesn't come from the Public Works budget?
It does come from the Public Works budget.
So how much did we budget for the holiday stroll this year?
We don't break it down that way, Commissioner Pappas. I could tell you what we spent last year, no, 2 years ago, rather. But we don't budget that way. We don't budget for each individual overtime opportunity.
So technically, that part of that stroll money would be Public Works overtime?
No. No, that wouldn't be Public Works overtime. That would be other costs associated with the stroll, but it wouldn't be
Okay.
Public Works overtime. That comes out of our budget.
So on something like that, okay, so the holiday stroll gets canceled. There are 2 choices you could make there. You could let it go lapse to the general fund. Or, but then, the next year, when the holiday stroll comes you got to come up with $40,000 and tax the taxpayers for that. The second alternative is to assume, well, we're probably going to have a holiday stroll in 2022. So if we carry forward the money, we won't have to come up with the money next year when the holiday stroll comes around. So either way, if we're going to do a holiday stroll, the taxpayers pay. The question is, do you carry the money forward and save it so that you don't have to come up with the money next year, or do you let it lapse to the general fund and then re-tax the people for it? I mean, that's the basic decision. And I think you could go either way, you know? I mean, either way, I mean, to me, it's better to just hold the money. It's for a specific purpose. We know we're going to have a holiday stroll. It's something people really enjoy. The benefit of holding it for the following year is that, well, we've paid for it. It's all paid for. So we don't have to worry about budgeting it the following year. Commissioner Moriarty.
Yeah, Mayor, I just have a question regarding procedure. I don't know if, Mr. Griffin, you know the answer to this, but, because this comes to us as an informational item,
Yeah.
the escrow. However, this board approved the budget for the division. And so now we're having a repurposing of some of the funds, $185,000. Shouldn't that be done by motion to this board to approve that? Or can you just, it's just a matter of procedure. You see?
Well, I think I mean, John can address it maybe more, but I think the legality, the situation is that once the money is unspent, anything unspent on June 30, goes into the general fund, and only the Board of Aldermen has authority to appropriate money in the general fund.
Thank you.
And that's true of all departments. I mean, we had, money came from the school department, but Public Works get the money back. I mean, some of the, like the surf project, the $3 million for surf, which is buying equipment, there's a lot of Public Works equipment in there. A lot more than $145,000, I think. So, actually, in this case, money came from other departments to help Public Works because their unspent money is buying Public Works equipment. Commissioner Pappas.
So for 2022, did we not budget for the holiday stroll?
We'd have to look. I don't think we did.
Okay. Thank you.
And I actually don't see the holiday stroll in the list, but I'm assuming it's here somewhere. But I take your word for it that it's here somewhere. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Also, on an escrow item like, say, holiday stroll, if in the end it's not necessary, no one has the authority to reallocate the money except for the Board of Aldermen. I mean, I can't spend the money without a vote by them for some other purpose, I, as the mayor, I mean, whoever the mayor is, has no authority to spend an escrow for some other reason. So there needs to be a vote to change the purpose. All right, thank you. Next, we have the director's report.
Okay, the first slide is Cleveland Street paving, which is in front of Fairgrounds Elementary School on August 30th, Sunshine Paving. On Fairview Ave, this is an emergency sewer repair of a collapsed sewer main. That was done on August 9th. This is Liberty Utilities did an gas main installation on Amherst Street on September 2nd. This is, you'll notice on the mid-block crosswalks, we are finally putting up the additional rectangular rapid flashing beacons. They were completed in locations on Main Street by Badger Daylighting on September 10th. This Saturday, we are hosting Wheels and Wings. That will be at 10 a.m. at the Nashua Airport. It's a great event. The kids love it. We'll have lots of equipment there and planes for them to see, so. This is tree removal on Bates Drive by a crane crew. These was to eliminate some declining trees around Greeley Park that had become a risk to abutting residents. We're working on, at Lincoln Park, doing some field renovations. The street department has been assisting, working with parks, with the construction of a retaining wall behind the backstop of the lower baseball field to better control surface water, and working on filling and grading the settled soccer field, because as you know, this is built on a former landfill. So we had some settling, so we needed to do some work. So that's going well. We repaired a sinkhole next to a telephone pole here on Belknap Street. The crews are running an electric conduit for a new light pole at Fields Grove. The new light will be near the gazebo. There was some concern, there was some inappropriate activity going on, so I'm putting some lighting there to hopefully prevent that. This is, we assisted with a repaired sewer pipe at City Hall, and that was related to the transit upgrades that are being done now. We're upgrading our lights at the wastewater treatment plant to LED. This is a picture of the electricians doing that work. We hired our contractor flow assessment to install some flow meters at 4 different locations throughout the city's collection system. These flow meters will give us more information on how the collection system performs in rain events.
Good.
So that'll be helpful. This is, we had one of our hoists replaced. This one is located in the dry well. These are important for moving heavy equipment in and out of hard-to-access locations. The curbside collection of oversized items will end for the season soon. The last date to request a pickup is on Friday, October 22nd, and the collections will be ending on Friday, October 29th. We have a household hazardous waste collection scheduled for Saturday, October 2nd from 8 to noon, and that'll take place at the Park and Ride lot at 25 Crown Street. We do have one more that I'll announce a little bit later in November, but this is the second to last hazardous waste collection of the year. The Fort Hills Landfill and Nashua Recycling Center will be closed on Monday, October 11th for Indigenous Peoples' Day. So all curbside collections will be delayed by 1 day that week. That's it.
Just because I can orient all this, back to the escrows, what line is this holiday stroll situation, the escrow?
I see that line number, the font is quite small.
Yeah,
26.
7-6?
2.6. It's 27,100 is a number if it's easier to look down.
Oh, I thought the number was 40,000, so. Now I don't even see 7-6.
26.
26? And there's more than one 26, but. Do you see it?
Yeah, it's right here.
All right, well, I will keep looking. I will find it later.
It's under civic and
Oh,
community
yes, holiday
activities.
stroll, yes, 27,100, right, okay, thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the director's report?
I had a question. The light conduit that you put in, was that related to, there were some members of the public who commented that there was some place that had no electricity and they would I think she was involved with PAL or
Yes.
something. Was
No-
that
No,
that
this was
location?
the one I was referring to is at Fields Grove. The one you're thinking of is at Los Amigos Park.
Oh,
And we are working on that as well. We had an issue, we thought Eversource gave us some misinformation. They told us that one of the poles was actually ours. Turns out it wasn't, it was theirs. So we need to put in another pole, which we're in the process of doing right now. That should be resolved very soon, that as well. We've already done the trenching and everything. Now it's just a matter of getting the pole and the electricity hooked back up, so
Okay,
it should be
great.
soon.
Good.
Commissioner comments?
Commissioner comments? Commissioner Pappas?
Is there any way, after the director's report, if we can have a follow-up on, just so that we're able to tune into what folks have expressed concern about? I know that we're doing those tip-downs, and they're taking an awfully long time for Sunshine Paving. And it just would, since we do have a person that takes all that information, could we either request it via email monthly, if you don't want to put it in the packet, would that, and then to see how quickly the stuff gets resolved?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. What information? That-
When citizens call in to express concern, whether it be a pothole, whether it be, the sidewalk's been dug up for 5 months.
Oh, boy. That would be a huge undertaking because we collect that information through a lot of different resources. So some of it will come in through email, some of it comes in through cartograph, some of it comes in through phone calls. So we do have a fair amount of communication with residents, so that it would be, we don't really have one central location to just, complete a printout of that. So that would be a pretty huge undertaking to try to do that. I mean, we do have a lot of that information in cartograph, but not all of it.
I mean, I do think that information's a really good thing. I think that everyone should have access to it. And someone got a great detail and put it out on social media, but I think having us troll social media to try to find, what people are concerned about, that's kind of rough, and I just feel like we're kind of left out of the loop in some ways.
Well, I think we're very responsive. I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting things taken care of. I'm not sure how, I guess I'm not sure how to respond to that request. I'm not sure how I would be able to provide you with all of the information that we're getting from people. A lot of, some of that social media stuff is, believe it or not always true. I don't.
Right, but someone was able
Yeah.
to get something very detailed, which, as I
Yeah.
said, I think it's great. But I think, I know sometimes when it takes me a few calls if someone asked about a specific thing. And I think sometimes it takes a little bit longer than it should. It's too bad, I wished I didn't want to ask it earlier when, Attorney Bolten was here, but for example, I think the way the Sunshine Paving has done the tip downs, I mean, if someone's calling Public Works and they're saying, there's nothing we can do, it's not us, it's Sunshine Paving, well, it kind of does have to do with us because we hired Sunshine Paving. And I have noticed those construction barrels have been up since like early May in a lot of places, and the tip downs haven't been done yet. Have they given us any time frame on those?
Well, again, our city engineer's still here, but we've embarked on an aggressive ADA ramp program this year. We're doing about 175, of which we've done about 90 to date, but we do plan to get the rest of them done. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do those ramps, but they're really, really important. It's important for us to provide accessibility as we're repaving roads, and so we'd love to do all the sidewalks. We don't have the funding to do that, but we are doing the ramps. So yes, it has taken time, but I think it's worthwhile. This is the first year that we've done so many ramps so aggressively, so that's been challenging, and Sunshine Paving has had some difficulty with their subcontractor, there's no question. I think all in all, they've done a pretty good job, and I know that we continue to try to wrap some of them up, so.
Because I know, for example, like Charlotte Ave they've been dug for a really long time. Good portion of Charlotte Ave, like it just seems like it's been a very long time.
Yeah, it does take time. There's a lot going on, and we have a very aggressive paving program, so.
It was a wet July, too.
But we're trying, we're trying. I mean, everything I think is supposed to be wrapped up paving-wise within, I believe, and Dan, if I'm incorrect, in the next 3 weeks or so, everything should be pretty well wrapped up. So,
Okay.
but we look at that, and in fact, we had a discussion this week about, how we can improve our operations and how we can get some of this done a little more quickly. We may have taken on a little bit more than we probably should have, but we've been under a lot of pressure to get these ADA ramps completed by the state and by the federal government, honestly. So we're really trying to make a dent in this, and we don't have a lot of money. We don't have the money to be able to make all of our sidewalks ADA compliant. We'd love to be able to do that. We just can't. But one thing that we can do is do the ramps, and that's what we're trying to focus on.
Right, no, I wasn't insinuating that, but what I'm saying is every single place where I see those construction barrels, I
Yeah.
assume that means because you want to fix the ramp. I've just seen them throughout the city in
Yeah.
different,
Yep,
because a lot of those haven't
Sure
been
will.
touched, and it's still, they've been up there since early May,
Yeah.
kind of blocking sidewalks.
yeah,
So, I mean, if they're not going to do them this year, it would be great for them, I think, to remove some of those
yep,
barrels.
yep, we can look into that.
And then my one last question, is the building subcommittee going to meet this month?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Anyone else? If not, Commissioner Moriarty, oh, wait, sorry, we have personnel items. Item A, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to accept the resignation of Diane Gay, Operator 2 wastewater, effective September 4th, 2021.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Commissioner Pappas, item B.
All right, of course, I hope I don't do a hack job on this name. To accept the retirement of Phil Fote?
Fode?
Fode, okay.
Close.
Collection System Technician wastewater effective October 1st, 2021, or October 4th, 2021.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Item C, Commissioner Tease.
Move to accept the resignation of Scott Leard, truck driver, effective September 17, 2021.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Commissioner Shoneman, item D.
Move to accept the resignation of Robert Nash, equipment operator, effective September 3, 2021.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. Item E, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve and unseal the non-public minutes for personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of August 27, 2021.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. Do we have a motion on a non-public session? I think
I move by
Commissioner
roll
Tease.
call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A32B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
All right. Would we please call the roll on that?
Commissioner Tease?
Yes?
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes?
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes?
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes, motion passes. And we're going into non-public session.